Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. My name is Arfan and today we are going to create a custom hook to handle form in React.js. We will simplify the process of form handling in React.js with a custom hook. Handling forms in React.js can be a tedious task, and that's why there are libraries like Formic, React, Hook Form, and etc. And their job is to simplify the process of form handling, and they do the job pretty well. But if you are working on a small project, or if you do not want to add a third-party library for form handling, you can create a custom hook to handle your forms. And that's what we are going to do today. We will create a custom hook to handle our form, and we will fix some of the traditional issues that you will face when you handle your form in React.js. So let's do it. So first of all, here we have a form. So in the form we have different types of form fields. You can see here we have all the form fields that we usually use on our website. So now what we will do is we will actually see how we can handle this form in our React.js. So first of all, let's take a look how a traditional form handling looks like. So this is the traditional approach, you can see. So first of all, we have this user state, and inside that we have our initial data for this form, and after that we have this handle change function which will handle the form data change. So here you can see in this input, whenever we have on change, we will call this handle change function. So which means in our input, whenever we will update the value, we will write anything or any kind of change of value, we will call this function handle change, and it will handle the value of this form data based on the event. So whenever we will call, it will take an event actually, and based on this event it will check the form type. So here you need to keep in mind is that all the form fields doesn't work same. So let me give you an example. So this checkbox here you can see, so this checkbox doesn't have any kind of value attribute. So all the other form field you can see here will have this value attribute, but this one doesn't have the value attribute on the checkbox. So usually what we do is actually we take this checked attribute instead of value. So for the checkbox you need to use this checked attribute instead of values. So that's what I'm saying here is that, so based on the form field type you need to write your logic here and update the form data. And also we will see it in a moment in action. We will write our own handle change, and after that we will have our handle submit. So this is the form. Whenever we will submit, we will call this handle submit function. So in the handle submit we will not do anything here. So this is up to you what you want to do after the form submission. So if you want to send the form data to the server, you can actually take the form data and send it to the server with API request. And after that, if I come here in the element, one more thing is that here you see I'm writing these all attributes of the input. So in the input we have ID attribute, name attribute, type, value, on change. So these attributes are actually repetitive in all the form field. So in all the form field we need to write the same attribute over again and again. So that's an issue, I guess, and that's what also we're gonna fix in our custom hook. So we will not write this all repetitive attribute. So yeah, that's all. You can see we have a long form here, and we will see how we can actually make the form handling a lot easier with custom hook. So now if I come here in our blog, so after the introduction, here you can see what we will do in our custom hook. So our hook will include three main functions actually. So it will give us these get input props, so which will create common input field properties. So which means all the common input field properties will be generated from one line. We do not need to repeat ourselves over and over again. And after that we will have this handle field change which is equivalent to this one. So instead of having a handle change function for each of our form, we will have this handle field change function in our custom hook, and we will use it in our all the form. So here we will actually manage the changes of the input values, which is the on change event handler. And also beside these two things, a really useful thing that we will do is that reset form function. So reset form is a function that will allow us to reset our form to its initial values. So these three things, or these three function, we will actually create in our custom hook to handle our form easily, and that's what we are going to do right now. So let's do it. So here for our custom hook, let's create a new folder with the name of hooks, and inside that we will have our custom hook with the name of useForm.ts. So I'm going to be using TypeScript here, but if you are using JavaScript, you can also follow. There will be not that much of a difference between TypeScript and JavaScript. So in this useForm.ts, so this will be our custom hook file, and inside this file we will export our custom hook first of all. So export default and the name of the hook, which is the useForm, and also this will be a function, so useForm, and like this. So now we have this useForm function, and we are exporting it from this file. So first thing that we will do is we will take some props here. So here we will take all the initial values, so initial values, and since I'm using TypeScript, I need to type this. So what will be type of initial values? We do not know the form. The form could be anything, and it could have any type of form fields and any amount of form fields. We do not exactly know what will be the type of these initial values, and for that we will make it generic. So here I will say it will be generic, and so whatever I will pass, it will take the type of that props. And after that, inside the function, the first thing that I will do is I will store my form values, and for that I will use state hook, and here we'll have values and set values, and it will come from use state like that. So now we have a state for our form values, and I will initialize this state with the initial values. So initial values, so whenever first we will render our form, so it will use this value, and we are using our initial values here. So in the first render it will use the initial values. And here one more thing, when we will pass our initial value to the custom hook, we need to make sure that it's an object, and each property of that object will represent a form field. Like this is a form field here, you can see, and the key here will be the name of our form field, and the value will be the value of the form field. And after that, let's create our first function, which will be the reset form. So this is a really easy function and really nice to have and really handy. So for this function, I will create a constant reset form. So this will be a function as well. So let's do that. And inside the form, whenever I will call reset form function, I will actually reset the value, this value, I will reset the value to its initial values. So how we can do that? I can say set values will be the initial values. So doesn't matter when we call that function, it will set its value to the initial values. And finally, at the end of this function, we can return, and inside the return I can say reset. So I am returning the reset form. So whenever I will call this use form, now I can actually receive this reset form function. But beside this reset form function, we will have two more functions, and the first one is the handle field change. So constant handle field change like that, and this will be function as well. So we have our handle field change. So the first thing we will do is this will take an event, and this will be the React change event for our form field, and we can type it with React.change event, you can see here, and inside that we can say HTML input field or input element actually. So now we have a proper type for this event. Now inside the function we can actually use this event, so we can get the event properties, like what is the name of the form field. So constant, we can destructure name, from the e.target. So now we can destructure the name of the form field. Beside the name, we can also destructure like value. Now here one more thing is that we said that there could be different types of form field. Right now I am actually saying that form field will be input HTML element, but instead of HTML input element we can have like select or any other form field. So we need to make sure that whatever form field we want to cover here, we have the type of this form field. So now we have the input element, we can have like HTML text area, and also we can have like HTML select. And beside this, if you have any other element type, you can add it like this way. And after that, if I come here, oh, one more thing, we forgot to extract one more thing here, which is the type of the form field. And after that, I will create a let variable which will be a temporary placeholder for our value. So it will be for our new value. So value, and the type for this one unknown, and it will be as same as the value. So whatever the value, we will actually set it to our temporary new value. And the reason we are doing is that we will actually change this value based on the form type. Like if it is a checkbox, we know that it will not have any kind of value for our checkbox. We will use the checked property instead of value. So that's why we will say if the type is checkbox, in that case the v will be, here we will say the b will be e.target.checked. So as I said, in our checkbox here, in our checkbox we will have this checked, and we can actually take the value of this checked. So now here you can see, since I'm using TypeScript, I'm having a type error here. So it's saying that this text area element doesn't have any kind of check property, and that's why it's saying that maybe this checked is actually doesn't exist. I need to say that this e.target is a input element, because if you come here, so this is an input element, this checkbox is an input element. I need to say that here. So I can say e.target will be the HTML input element. So if I say that, now e.target is an HTML input element, and I can access my checked property from that. So now we have this b. So I'm saying that if it is a checkbox, the value will be whatever the value of this checked, if it is a true or false. Here actually what we can do is we can actually check all the other form field type if you want to check here. So if you have like any special field that you want to check, you can check it here. So handle other input type here if needed. In our use case, we do not need to check any other form field type right now. So now the last part of this function is that we need to update our values with the new value that we have here. So how we can do that? I can say set value. Inside the set values, we will have all the previous values, and we will have the new value for this field. And one thing is that we are expecting this to be an object. So inside this object we will have key value, and the key will be the name, and the value will be the value of the form field. So here the key will be the name. We can say that whatever the target name will be the key, and the value will be whatever I'm getting the value. And since we are having a new temporary value that I'm using here, I will use that here. That's all. So now if it is a checkbox, we will change its value on the way. So if it is not a checkbox, we will get the value directly from the e.target, this one. So now we have our set value with the new value. So now this function is ready, and we can return this function from our hook. So handle field change. So the final one will be the get field props. So let's create the function. So constant get field props equals to, and it will be a function like this. So in this function we will take few arguments here. So the name of the field and the type of the field and the value of the field. And this name, we need to actually type these things, these arguments. So here, what will be the type of this name? So as I said, the name will be, so the form name will be the key of our initial values. So in the initial values, we will actually pass an object. Inside the object, the key will be the name and the value will be the form field value. So that's what I'm going to be, that's what we need to actually set it here. So we will say the key of our initial value, and the initial value type is the T, and I will say key of T. So now after that, we need to actually add the type for these two arguments as well. So the second one will be the string. So I will say string, and the third one will be the string as well. Yes, like that. And the third one, this value is an optional argument here. So I will make it optional with a question mark like this. So these are for only TypeScript. If you are using JavaScript, you do not need to type all these things. So you can just add just name, type, and value and go on. So first of all, in this function, let's create a payload. So this will be a constant payload. So payload will be the all the props here. Inside the payload, we will have all the props that we will get from this function. So here we will have all the props. And after that, whenever we will call this, we can just spread all the props from this function. So we need to type this payload, and for that, let's also create an interface payload, something like that. And here I can just say what will be inside of this payload. So inside the payload, the first thing that we will have is the name, and we already know the type of it. It will be key of T. And after that, we will have the onChange. So onChange, we will have what will be the type of onChange. So it is function that we have here, onChange, and we can directly say the type of whatever the type of this function, handle field change. And after that, we will have our value. So value, something like that, and this value will be optional. Since in the checkbox we will not use value, we will use checked. So it's an optional for some of the field. So value will be optional, and the type of this value will be string or number. Based on your use case, you can add any other type here as well. So after that, we'll have field type. So form field type here. So the type will be an string here, and after that, we'll have the checked, the last one, checked. So this checked will be the boolean, and again this will not be, this will be an optional, because in most of the case we will not use checked. Only for checkbox we will use checked, and this will be an optional for that. So now here we can say this payload constant, the type of this will be this interface that we have, payload. Now inside this, we can have our actual values. So the values, the first one will be the name, and we already have the name from our argument here. We can directly use that. We do not need to change anything for the name. And after that, the type, we also do not need to change that. We can directly use it from the argument. And after that, we will have our onChange. OnChange will be the this one, handle field change, the function that we created, and that's all. So now on the payload, it's ready. All the required properties of the payload is actually ready. The name is ready, onChange is ready, and the type is ready. So now we need to make sure when we will use value and when we will use checked. That's all. So for that, what I will do is here I will say if type equals to checkbox. So now if it is a checkbox, we need to actually provide this checked. So I will say payload dot checked. The value of this checked will be, as I said, the name here will be the same key for our initial values. So I can use that. So from the values, I can use the name here, and it will give me the exact value that I want. And since it's a checkbox, I can say as boolean. So now if it is a checkbox, it will take the value from our values with the name, and it can add it to our payload in our checked properties. And after that, if it is a radio, what we need to do? Else if we need to also check the radio type. So the type is radio. So here, if the type is radio, we need to actually get the value from our argument here. You can see, so this value. So how we can do that? So first of all, we need to make sure that we are actually getting the values for our radio, since it's an optional. So I will say if there is no value, I can throw error. So here I can say value is required for radio field. That's all. And after that, we can say payload dot value equals to whatever the value that we have here. So since we already checked, if there is no value, we will throw this error, which means we already have the value, and we can actually add the value to our payload. And the final one, else for all the other case, we can say payload dot value equals to, if we provide any kind of value that, and otherwise we will actually take the value from our state that we have here, from state. And I can say, and I can do that as I did earlier using the name, and this will be as string or boolean, sorry, number, string or number, because as I said, the values will be the string and number here, as you can see. So if you have any other property, I guess you need only these two, string or number, for any kind of values here. And the third one we can have is the boolean for checkbox. We already covered that. I guess that's all for all the other kind of fields. You don't need to worry anything else here. And that's all. We have our payload ready. Now we can just return this payload. Yep, that's all for this function. So now we can actually return this function, get field props. So here you can see in our radio, we just forgot to do one thing here, is that we need to also add the checked value. So I can say payload dot checked is equals to, so if it is whatever I am actually sending the value, it is the same as the value that we have in our form, then we can actually make it a checked. I can say values dot name. So this is the value of our form, and whatever the value of the option that we have here, so I can say value that I am getting from the argument. So if these two actually same, then I can say it is a checked. If these two are not same, I can actually make it unchecked. Now you can see this option 2 is now checked because it's actually matching. Now this radio is actually working, as you can see. So here a little correction, you need to also pass the checked for the radio, and you need to check it with the current value and the value of the option that you are passing to the argument. So finally, from our custom hook, we need to return our form values. So this form values, we need to return that so that we can use it in our form. So we are returning the form values, this one. You can see we have our custom hook ready. So let's actually use this custom hook on our form. So I have this form and I have these initial values. I will use the same initial values here. So let's actually get these initial values. And now instead of this, I will use my own custom hook. So constant form equals to useForm, and inside the useForm we are expecting initial values, and inside the initial values inside the use form, we can just actually paste our initial values like this. So now inside the use form, we have all of our initial values that we are expecting. And here once again, the key will be the name of the form field and the value will be the value of the form field. Okay. And from this use form, what we will get? So we will get field props, handle field change, and finally reset form. That these three functions that we are returning from our custom hook. So now we can actually use that. So now let's use these functions. So get field props. So this is the one that we are going to use first of all. So in our input, you can see we have these properties. We do not need this anymore. We can just say get field props, and inside that we are expecting something, the name of the field, which will be the, as you see here, we have our all the suggestions, because I said whatever will be the this name, whatever will be the initial value we set here, the key of that will be the name, and that's why it's actually giving all the suggestions from the from these initial values, you can see. And we will use name here, and after that we need to provide the type here. So here is, you can see the type could be the string, so here it will be a text, and finally we'll have the values, and it's an optional, and I do not need this for this case, and I can save that. And here okay, we need to actually, what it will do is it will return an object here, as this object, the payload object that we have here. So we need to actually spread all the payload object properties. So I will just spread it, and that's all. Now it will give me the field props, and after that let's do the same thing for all the other inputs here. So for the name, after that we have the number. I can say get field props, and the name will be the my number, and the type will be the number, like that. You see how much easy it is to handle form with this custom hook now. So you do not need to write this repetitive attribute anymore. You can just spread this all from this function. So for this one, email will be the value for the first one, so email, and the second one will be the type, so it will be the email type, and that's all. And for the third one, we can say it's a checkbox, you can see. So this one will be interesting, and get field props, and the agreement, that is the name of this field, and the type will be the checkbox, like this. So that's all for this one. And finally after that we have the range. So in the range we do not need on change value type name, just remove this 4, and instead of that say get, what is the name, get field props, and the name of the field is the range, and after that we will have the type, which will be the range, and finally we don't need value here as well. So we need the value only for the radio actually. And after that let's come to the radio. So as I said, this will be for the radio for all the input option. So this is the input option for the radio. We do not need name, type, and the value. We can just remove that, and instead of that we can say get input props, sorry, get field props, and after that inside that we can say radio, and the type is the radio. For our radio we need to provide the value, if you remember, and the first option value will be the option 1, and that's all. And I will just copy it, and I will paste it for this one, and paste it for this one as well. So I will change the value 2 and 3 here. And for the last one we have the select. We don't need on change value name, and remove that, and instead of that get field props, name will be the select, and here I will say it will be the type of select, and we don't need the value as well here. And that's all for the select. And the final one, the last one, I promise, it is the not checkbox, it is the text area. Remove this, and instead of that we'll have get field props, and the name will be the message. I guess this is the name of the field, and here I will have the type, which will be the text area, and finally value. We don't need to pass the value, we need the value only for the radio. And even if you pass the value here, it will actually put it to the default value, so it will actually overwrite these initial values if you put any values to this get field props here. Okay, now our form should be working, so we do not need to use this handle change anymore. We can delete that. Now let's actually check. Seems like we can change our values. Working, and that's all you can see. So it's working, and here now you can. So now let's see if our initial value is working or not. Let's actually remove this and say that the initial value for the name will be my name. If I save that and refresh this form, so in the initial render we have our default value coming from this name. And if I come here in the my range, instead of 0 I will say 80, and if I save that and refresh, okay, my range 80 is not working. So let's see. So 80 is not working because maximum is the 100, maximum is the 1000. Now we need to make sure that it is in the range, so let's make it 800. Now if I save it, so in the initial render we are seeing that it's working, the initial value is working. Okay, and also you can actually set default value for the radio and select. Like we have the three option 1, option 2, option 3. We can say for the radio it will be the option 2, and for the select it will be the option 3. Now if I save and refresh, as I can see the option 3 is selected here. And final thing is that we wanna use this little function reset form. So we have a button here, reset. So here you can see reset. I need to say that whenever I will click this, on click I will call this reset function that we have, so this one. So now if I change my value and if I call this reset, as you can see it's resetting the whole form to its initial value, which means our reset form is also working. And final thing is that we do not need to use our handle field change in this form component, so we can remove it because we are using it in our get field props. Because if you remember, in the get field props we are actually passing on change and we are using this function, so we do not need to use it in every field. We can use it with this function get field props. Okay, here, and if you have a new form you can just initialize the new form with these lines of code and use this get field props and it will work as a charm. So yeah, it's now a lot easier to handle a form. So now if I come here in my form, I can use the form values. So here you can see on submit, whenever I will submit the form, I'm calling this handle submit form. So we can use our form values here. So I can just destructure the form values from our useForm hook and we can use that. So we can do our job here with the form values. We can, if you want to validate your form values, you can do that, or if you wanna post it to the backend, you can also do that. But for now we will just console log our form values. Whenever we will submit, we will console log it. So let's actually test it. And if I now submit this form, okay, that's good. That's not a valid Gmail. So by default, whenever you use email input type, it will do a basic validation for the email. Yeah, that's good. So now whenever I submit a form successfully, I can see my console log here with all the form values that I have. So all the form values, if you can see here. Yeah, that's good. So instead of console log, you can do any other things that you want to do with the form values after the submission of the form. So that's all. So this is it, guys. As you can see, our custom hook is ready. So now with this custom hook, you can handle your form very easily, and you can keep your code clean, as you can see. So this is not the end of handling form. There are lots of other things like error handling and validations. So you can also extend those features in this custom hook, but we will not do that today. So this is it, guys. I hope you guys learned something from this video, and if you did, please subscribe the channel. So my name is Arfan, and I will see you in the next video. Till then, take care, bye bye, and Khuda Hafiz.